and welcome back to Ross Taylor Woodworks. Finally got something in to work on. This is from a long-time customer. I've done stuff for decades. It's a teak bench. It needs to be redone. The seat's all peeling up, and the finish is kind of worn out. It was finished with some sort of polyurethane, and this is just like a deck surface where you have some areas that are peeled off and weathered, and other areas where the finish is still intact. And along the edges here, it's all peeled off. Okay, yesterday I cleaned this down. I wiped it down with some TSP. There was some mold on the bottom of the slats and spider webs and some dirt. So all that's been cleaned off. Now I'm thinking the best way to proceed with this is I'm going to take the entire seat apart. It's just screwed underneath. I'm going to take all the slats off and sand them uniformly and stain them separately from the bench. That way I have better access to the underside of the bench, and it'll be easier to sand the slats. I won't have to try to get in between the cracks. This is attached. The slats are screwed in. Some screws here. And then this inner rail comes off. Now when removing the screws for the slats didn't seem to want to pop loose. I finally realized that these slats were glued down. Now before I take the seat apart, I want to number the slats so I get them back in the right order. I'm going to number them from back to front. And also put a small arrow pointing towards the back so I get them back in the right order. Now that the slats are all loose, I can easily run them through the drum sander and just make one pass through the drum sander to get them down to a uniform surface. Then follow up with the random orbit sander to do the edges. Then also sand the entire bench with the random orbit sander and hand sand with 60 grit paper. Then after 60 grit, I'll follow up with 100. I don't want to go any farther than 100 because I want the new stain to get a good bite into the old finish. Okay, now I'm down in the finishing room. I'm going to proceed with 2 coats of the solid color deck stain, making sure to brush it very uniformly. Okay, now I'm done staining. Actually, before I did this staining, I went around and put little slivers of wood in each of the screw holes. Just a little dab of glue and some slivers. So the new screws get a good bite. Now I can proceed with reassembly of the seat. I'm getting all the slats back in order and in the right direction. Also the two end pieces, I've got those in the right order. I marked those previously. Now I'm going to substitute some deck screws for the original stainless steel flathead screws. The deck screws have a much coarser thread and will get a better bite into the wood. I'm going to add some sliders to the bottom of the feet to separate it from the ground. To prevent water from getting soaked up through the feet. I'm going to use a little stainless steel screw. Now it turns out the screw was too small, the head of the screw was too small, so it slipped right through the pre-drilled hole. So I'm going to switch to the 1/4 inch deck screws. They have a larger head. Okay, I've got the bench all done. Not a major project, other than taking the seat apart. There wasn't any repairs to do. Taking the seat apart made it much easier to stain, so I could get underneath and get all the slats, the edges of the slats and things. And of course this is an exterior deck stain, so it should last for years. And preparation for this is just like a deck surface. Getting all the old flaking stain or paint off and getting it down to a uniform surface. One good thing about this exterior stain is it's very easy to touch up. If I'm moving this to the house and bump it, I can just do a quick touch up on it. I'm going to take some stain with me. So that'll do it for this one.